Well, yeah. It's good to see you guys. Just to hitchhike on what Stephen was just saying, you know, we love to have fun around here, and one of the unique chances we have to even ratchet the fun up a little extra is a night like this one coming up on the 29th. And just if you are new around here or maybe don't feel real connected, let me say, the best way to meet people at North Shore is to jump in and serve. Because you begin to rub shoulders with people that you begin to connect with, relationships begin to form. If you're looking to get to know some people around here, sitting in a chair is not the best way to do it. Jumping on a team is the best way to do it. And the 29th is a fantastic chance for you to do that. So please check that out. Now, it is great to have you with us. By the way, those of you joining us online, it's great to see you again as well. I'm Wolfgang, part of the team here. And many of you know, I've told this many times over the 10 years or so that I've been here, that my first full-time ministry was at a church in Las Vegas. And one of the most memorable experiences I had in my 8 years there was when a friend of mine asked if I might be interested in selling programs for a Mike Tyson fight at the MGM. He was in charge of concessions there, and I would be walking the concourses and through the stands, the seating sections, selling programs for the fight. They were $15, I still remember, $15. 10 went to them, 5 got to stay with me. And as many as I could sell in the evening, that's what I would make. And so, as a bonus, I would get to watch the fight at the end of the night, because by that point, everybody wanted a program had one. So this is the first time, just to give you context, this is the first time that Mike Tyson had fought since the whole Evander Holyfield ear-biting incident. Do you remember that way back? So he had just gotten his license back. There was all kinds of buzz around this fight. Celebrities were flying in literally from around the world. People were paying thousands of dollars to get to see this fight. And I had the chance to get paid to watch it, all right? This is one of the easiest decisions of my life, okay? Now, it's the only boxing match that I have ever attended, but I will never forget it. Tyson knocked out a guy named Francois Botha in 5 rounds. I still have one of the programs at home as a souvenir. You can't see me very well, but I'm right up there in the corner. You can look at the picture closer later and check it out. You see me with my beard. Anyway, this was huge. But of course, it's not the only kind of competition that gets held in Vegas from time to time. Several years later, Las Vegas became the host city to the Miss America Beauty Pageant contest. Now, we had moved away by this point, so I was not asked to sell programs for this one, and I have a hunch my wife, Lori, probably wouldn't have been quite as excited about that idea anyway, but now, I know boxing matches and beauty contests are sort of sensitive subjects, that they aren't popular with a lot of people because of the brutality and the violence on one hand, or maybe the shallowness or objectification or superficiality on the other. I get that. That's a conversation for another day, but just stick with me on the point that I'm trying to make today, okay? When it comes to Christianity, especially when it comes to having spiritual conversations or sharing our faith, we have to decide if Christianity is a boxing match or a beauty contest. Is it a boxing match or a beauty contest? What do I mean? You have to decide if faith is something that is a battle for supremacy, a boxing match, where in order to win, you have to beat down the competition. Or is faith more like a beauty contest, where the most beautiful story wins? You have to decide if you will strap on a set of these and head out into our world swinging, or if you'll do your best to polish up one of these, to help people see, to showcase the beauty of the story that God is telling in the world. Is it a boxing match or a beauty contest? See, I think figuring this out is a game changer in the way we live our faith and the way we view the other traditions and faiths that are around us. I think it's a game changer in how we talk about our faith and this idea of spiritual conversations. Because if you see Christianity as a boxing match, then you'll think sharing your faith is about having the best training, the best technique, the best preparation so you can knock out all those other worldviews out there. You'll feel like you have to be good at the left jab of logic, right? Or the uppercut of apologetics. I was so happy when I wrote that sentence, I gotta tell you, right? You'll think, I can only fight if I have special training. I can only fight if I'm in perfect spiritual condition, because otherwise I'll get slaughtered in the ring. Then most likely, as a result, you'll just keep your faith to yourself. But if you see following Jesus and sharing faith as a beauty contest, then life and faith becomes all about showcasing this good news of a God who sees every person in the world as valuable. Every person is precious. Every person as being worth dying for out of the opportunity to have a relationship with them. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a very real spiritual battle going on in our world. Even in a beauty contest, things get pretty intense, don't they? In fact, if you look real close at this picture, look at this lady over here. Something tells me if she had a chance, she'd punch the winner out, no problem, right? I mean, she's Miss Wisconsin. Chances are she's a Packers fan. You know how they are. You know what I'm talking about. There's intensity in this, don't get me wrong. But in a beauty contest, punching out the opponents is not how you win. We all know that, right? You don't score points for that. It's frowned upon in those settings, right? In a beauty contest, it's not about showing how bad everybody else is. It's about showcasing as best as you can. Spiritually speaking, it's about showcasing how good this God is, how gracious he is. And even though your life might not always be a perfect reflection of his beautiful story, because I'll tell you mine isn't, even those moments when we fall short can be opportunities to talk about God's healing and his forgiveness and his grace. Because this story isn't about my beauty, it's about his. Not about how good we are, because you aren't. It's about how good he is. How beautiful, how consuming, how transformational his grace is in our lives. Friends, that's beautiful. He is good. He is gracious. And friends, people need to know it. They don't need punched in the face. They need touched in the heart. And we can do that by the way we live, by how we respond when things don't go our way, or by how we respond when things do go our way, by how we respond when difficult times come, how we handle our stuff, how we treat those that we disagree with. Because when we have peace, when everybody around us would give in to worry, when we live with hope, when everybody else would be tempted to quit, when we have joy, when everybody else would be more likely to cave to fear, friends, it is beautiful. People notice. And that's what Jesus is talking about when he says in Matthew 5:16, let your light shine before others so they may see your good works and praise your Father in heaven. Seeing people live authentic, others-focused, peace-filled lives is a kind of beauty that shines so bright in our world, people can't resist it. In our world, it's so full of confusion and challenge all around us. See, here's the kind of community we want to be. We don't want to be the kind of church or Christians who strap on the gloves, head out of this room, and start swinging at the world. We want to be the kind of Jesus followers whose lives reflect the beautiful story of a generous God who loves us enough to give his life for the sake of ours. Whether it's in your school, whether it's on the sideline at your kid's game, whether it's in your office or your workplace or your neighborhood, friends, that is beautiful. Does this make sense to anybody? You tracking with me on this? And let me just say, for those that are here, or maybe you're watching right now online, maybe somewhere, someone along the way smacked you. They gave you kind of a spiritual black eye. all right? And I am so sad that happened. It should not have happened. I grieve that with you. And maybe you're here or you logged on and you wondered if this was another punch in the face coming today. I hope you're seeing we are not that kind of place. Now, we aren't perfect, of course. None of us are. But please don't blame God for some overzealous Christian in boxing gloves. Because this God is beautiful. Nothing compares to him and his story. His love is beautiful. And he wants to invite you to be part of the beautiful, restoring work that he's doing in our world. Now, part of me is tempted to just stop right now because I think living that out, letting that alone stand as today's most important thing is probably the biggest deal any of us could walk out of here with. I just believe that deeply, that shift in perspective can change everything. If we as followers of Jesus could spend our lives highlighting God's beauty and love instead of trying to tear down everybody that disagrees with us, I think that'd be a game changer for faith in our culture. But I do want to take it a step further in the time that I have left to just get really practical about how this can look, okay? What does it look like to actually do this, to hang up the gloves and showcase God's beauty? Well, some friends of mine in the Chicagoland area, two brothers named Dave and John Ferguson, they developed this little outline when it comes to living this stuff out, living out this beautiful story and sharing our faith with others. I love it. Because it's simple, it's easy for me to remember, it's memorable, and I'm hoping maybe you'll find it a little valuable as well, okay? It's built around the word bless, B-L-E-S-S, okay? Bless. And it reflects some of what Scotty talked about in first week of this series we've been in. It reflects some of the misconceptions that we talked about last week when it comes to spiritual conversations, but it's B-L-E-S-S. I'm hoping you can remember this. The first one is to begin with prayer. Begin with prayer. See, as I said earlier, this is a spiritual deal that we're talking about here. There is a supernatural component that we sometimes take for granted or that we sometimes sort of blow past. Everything in our lives, whether it's sharing our faith, whether it's living out this beautiful story, it all begins with prayer. And this is one of those things that we are so quick to nod at, to pay lip service to, but at the same time, sometimes overlook and even ignore. I'm embarrassed to admit to you how many times I have gotten up to do a message, and at some point, often after the fact, it occurred to me, here I am talking to people about Jesus when I have spent very little time actually talking with Jesus. It all begins with prayer. Praying for the people in our lives. Praying for hearts and eyes that see and beat like God's. Praying for opportunities to have spiritual conversations. Praying for the courage to say something about the difference that God is making in our lives. The Apostle Paul talked about this, and he even asked directly for this kind of help from the early Christians. In Colossians chapter 4, starting in verse 2, it says, "Devote yourselves to prayer, being watchful and thankful." Then he says it again, "And pray for us too, that God may open a door for our message," this good news, this beautiful story, "so that we may proclaim the mystery of Christ, for which I am in chains." Paul was suffering at the time for telling people about Jesus. "Pray that I may proclaim it clearly, as I should." And then he gives them this challenge: "Be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Debate them passionately on Facebook." No, I'm sorry, that wrong verse. That's not what it's, sorry. I'm sorry. No, it says, "Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone." See, here's Paul, one of the most dynamic, one of the most gifted evangelists of all times, this great pastor, this great leader. Even he knew it all begins with prayer. And those of you who know the story of Jesus, you remember how he started his public ministry just after he was baptized. What did he do? He went out into the wilderness for 40 days. And what does it say he was doing during that time? He was praying, beginning with prayer. If it was true for Paul, if it was true for Jesus, friends, it's true for you. It's true for us. In fact, as we start this new ministry season, we want to start it with that kind of prayer. When you leave today, you'll have a chance to pick up one of these little red cards. See this here? For those of you online, these will be available in PDF. They'll throw it in the chat there so you can link to it and download this. What this is a little card to remind us to pray. It's called the 11:02 Challenge. It's based on Luke 11:2, chapter 11, verse 2, which is where Luke records the Lord's Prayer, where we pray, "Dear Lord, bring your kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven." So the challenge is every day at 11:02 for the next 21 days to pray for the names that you write in this little card. You can set an alarm, you can set a reminder on your phone. That's what I've done. So it'll chime at 11:02 just to briefly pray. It's got a little suggested prayer on there. It's got a spot where you can write names that you want to pray for. Simple little thing you can carry, take a picture of on your phone, whatever works for you. But a beautiful little reminder that it all begins with prayer. If we want to have the impact and show the beauty of God's story in this world, it all starts there. So join us with this. Before you leave, stop out there, get a t-shirt, signing up for Community Serve Day, and grab one of these prayer cards that you can carry with you in your wallet or wherever it is that you carry with you each day. So B, begin with prayer. Second, L, listen. Listen. We've talked so much about this in this series. Learning to listen is one of the most important pieces of all when it comes to spiritual conversations. Genuinely listening to people for their point of view, for their experience, before we jump in and give our perspective or our opinion on everything. It's learning to ask questions and actually listening to what people have to say. Not waiting for your turn to talk, not cleverly constructing your rebuttal of what they just said, but genuinely hearing what they're saying. I've told you before, Jesus in the New Testament, he has asked 183 questions that are recorded for us in the New Testament. He only answers a handful of them. But by contrast, Jesus asks over 300 questions, and he listens. Any relationship starts with listening to someone's words and their life. And in a world, again, where people are so quick to shout down each other, whether it's on social media, whether it's in the public square, whether it's on TV, learning to listen helps point people, helps showcase the beauty of God's story. One of my favorite quotes, it's a slight paraphrase, but I want to attribute it to him, David Augsburger. It says, "Being listened to is so close to being loved that most people can't tell the difference." Isn't that true? You ever had someone who you just know they were really listening? Is there something powerful about that? But on the flip side, you ever sat with somebody that you just wish would listen? I mean, they're quiet when you talk, but you know they aren't hearing you. How powerful it is to just listen. So we begin with prayer. We listen. And then this is one of my favorites. We eat, right? We eat. There is something so gloriously, wonderfully social about eating, isn't there? Am I the only one that come on, guys. All you fit people, what's wrong with you guys, right? Thank God for taste buds, you know? He could have had us feed off the sun like plants or something, right? How cool is it that we get to explore and experience that and we get to do it with other people? And again, those of you who know Scripture, how many scenes is Jesus eating with people? Sometimes it's getting him in trouble because of the people he chooses to eat with. There's something profound and connecting about sharing a meal together. So powerful, moving us from just being acquaintances in life to beginning to become friends. And I don't mean this in some kind of project or manipulative, dishonest, disingenuous way. That's not what I mean. I mean genuinely sitting down and getting to know someone over a meal, sharing a meal. Who are you eating with? It's one of the things that I'm so excited about as we resume Alpha in person this fall. And again, if you don't know what Alpha is, it's a place for people who probably wouldn't call themselves Christians, but are at least curious about faith and the big questions of life. They want to have that conversation or explore it. And I'll say more about it a little bit later in this talk, actually. But one of the things that people always talk about when asked what they like about Alpha is the food. Food is a key piece of Alpha. And we have an incredibly gifted team who surprise me, frankly, with fantastic food every time we get together. It's all part of that experience. There's something about eating together that builds connection. Who are you eating with? So, you begin with prayer. You listen. You eat, and you serve. Serve. What did Jesus say? I did not come to be served, but to what? But to serve. He models all these things for us. As you pray for someone, as you listen to someone, as you spend time eating with someone, there's a good chance you will find out about some opportunity to serve that person in your life. Maybe to help out with something, maybe to meet a need, maybe it's simply to give a gift. But acts of service communicate a care and an interest that goes beyond just nice words. And it brings to life the kind of others-focused life that we are called to live. Now again, next week, a perfect example of this. Next week, we're not gathering here on this campus, as you know. Next week, we will be serving and worshiping out in our community. It's called Community Serve Day. Many of you know we're going to be working at 30 different schools, teaming up with 10 other churches and many other civic organizations to get things ready for the new school year in the Lake Washington District and the North Shore School District. So we'll be doing things like helping teachers set up classrooms, freshening up landscape, doing some painting. And it's one thing to stand in here or to go online and say how much we love our community. It's another thing to back it up by actually doing it. So next week, this building will be closed, but I assure you worship will be happening, friends, in the form of serving all over this community. And I hope you will be part of it. You've probably noticed when you came in today, some shirts set up in the lobby. We have a new edition Together For shirt that was printed and designed just for this event. We talk about being a church together for our neighbors, the next generation, and those in need. So we talk about being together for. This is the new design. Didn't they do a cool job on these? I love these. So I would urge you, if you've already signed up, you're watching online, you can come by this week in the office hours. They'll be happy to give you one. If you're here today, before you go, just outside the door, after you get your prayer card, stop by, grab one of these shirts, sign yourself and your family up, and be part of this incredible experience. It speaks to our world in a way that our words never can, okay? So how do we show the beauty of God's story? You can remember this stuff, can't you? How do we bless our world? We begin with prayer, right? We listen, we eat, we serve, and then finally we do this. We tell our story. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is found in John chapter 9. It's about this guy who'd been blind and Jesus heals him. It's a longer story than I have time to totally unpack here, but basically what this was partly a setup by some of the enemies of Jesus to try to knock him down, to kind of trip him up or trap him. And so they start grilling this guy who was healed about who Jesus really is. They start riding him about, is he good? Is he bad? Is he a sinner? Is he for us? Is he of the devil? Who is this guy really? And I love this guy's response while they're pushing him to unpack all these theological questions. Here's what he says in John chapter 9, verse 25. The blind man replied, whether he is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. All your theological questions and finer points, quite frankly, I have no idea. I'm not the right guy to ask. But here's what I do know. It wasn't that long ago I was wishing I was in the dark. But now a new light has come. I can see in a way I never saw before. And maybe your story's like that. Maybe it's not quite as dramatic, like literal blindness to sight. I don't know. Maybe it is. But every person touched by Jesus' love has a story. Maybe it's a new peace he's given you. Maybe he's gotten you through a hard time somehow in your marriage. If it wasn't for Jesus, I wouldn't be wearing this wedding ring. Maybe he helped you hold on to hope when you wanted to give up. Maybe it was some addiction that had you enslaved for years and you're experiencing new kinds of freedom or healing in your life. Maybe it's some resource need he met or provided for you in your life. And you don't have to understand or debate all the theology behind it. Just ask, what's your story? How's he touched you? We talked about this last week, but you remember what Peter had to say to those early Jesus followers in 1 Peter 3? Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give a reason for the hope that you have. But do this with gentleness and respect. You don't have to have all the answers to all the theological questions that are out there. You just need to have an answer for why it is you have hope when so many people in our world seem hopeless. Why is that? Share that, but do it gently. Do it respectfully. And remember what we read from that letter of Colossians earlier, the Apostle Paul, what he said. Remember again? He said, be wise in the way you act toward outsiders. Make the most of every opportunity. Let your conversation be always full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. Let your conversation be full of grace. We can talk about the grace that we've experienced in our own lives. Friends, it's beautiful. And you don't have to be able to explain everything. That's why we love to team up, to partner. It's why we do things like Alpha. Because it's in a place like that we can dive into those big questions where we've prayed together beforehand, where we learn to listen. The leaders there are trained in that, where we eat together, where we have a chance to serve each other just with kindness acts within the community. But we can dive into these big questions where we talk about the things that many of us may not feel equipped or ready to talk about ourselves. But by sharing the story of what Jesus is doing in our lives, we can invite others to come explore it themselves. One of the other key pieces of the Alpha experience are these short films that are designed to kind of unpack big themes in life. Who is Jesus? Why did he die? What does it look like to have faith? Why and how would I even read the Bible? Things like that. And woven with great information are these powerful stories of people whose lives have been changed by God. They're throughout the entire series. And we're seeing the difference that it's making in so many people's lives. Because here's the truth. People all around us are searching for something. If we just have the eyes to see what they're looking for, those people that might be overlooked, there may be opportunities to invite and to share this good news with them in an environment like Alpha. In fact, to get thinking about this, here's a little video about Alpha I want you to take a look at. Check this out.
Perfect, yes.
We all have that person in our lives. That neighbor we pass by every day outside our homes. That coworker we see at the office 5 days a week. Or those friends we catch up with every once in a while. People we wish could know and experience the love of God. How do we share it? Where do we even start? Deep inside, we know that it'll cost us something to open up our lives and share our faith. It takes time, vulnerability, sacrifice, the risk of rejection. But this is our call, to open our lives and to share Christ with the people close to us. Because it's only through opening your life up that spaces for honest conversations are possible. Spaces where people can truly be themselves and explore the deepest parts of life with people they know and trust. That's why we're running Alpha. It's a course over several weeks where you can invite your friends to explore life's biggest questions over a meal. It's a chance for you to invite that person into an honest conversation about faith. Because when it's hard to find the moment, or the words, or the courage, you can simply invite. Alpha, who will you invite?
See, the truth is there are people like that all around us every day. And you don't have to do it all yourself. That's why we team up and create these kinds of experiences. And we're so excited to kick off Alpha back in person on September 26th, and you can sign up to be part of that with a friend at northshore.church/alpha. Who will you invite? We'd love to have you and your friend there. See, friends, ordinary people like you and me, we can bless the people around us. And of course, it begins with prayer. So don't forget to grab one of those prayer cards on the way out today so you can set that reminder in your phone to be praying for those friends. It means listening, really paying attention to the people around us, hearing what they're saying, what they're thinking, rather than just throwing out what you think. It means eating, sharing a meal with someone, being intentional about that. Again, not as a project or as a manipulative thing, but as a genuine expression of care and relationship. It means serving, whether it's big events like Community Serve Day, or whether it's little ways in everyday life that you just meet someone's need or give them a gift. And it involves story, being able to gently and respectfully talk about the hope that we have found in Jesus, telling the big story of what God is doing in this world. And it's that story that we're going to remember and celebrate right now, that big story. Because here it is. The perfect God of the universe didn't sit up in heaven demanding that we get our act together. He was willing to come down to this earth. And he didn't strap on a set of boxing gloves to thump all those people who'd fallen short. But instead, he came humbly as a servant. He was willing to take the sin and the brokenness of my life, of your life, of every human life onto his shoulders. And in a beautiful act of selflessness, he was willing to die on a cross for us. But even more beautifully, he didn't stay dead. He came back to life. He took command of a crown that's greater than any crown. And by defeating even death itself, we can now live with hope and joy and peace. And that's what we believe, isn't it? That's our story. And you may be skeptical. I don't believe you. I don't blame you. I know some of this can be hard to believe. But let me ask you, what if it's true? Because there are good reasons to believe it. We dive into them in Alpha. This is the story. And this is what we remember when we eat communion together, or the Lord's Supper. These little symbols of bread and juice that represent Jesus' body and blood, which has been given for us. And of course, we've done it in creative ways throughout the pandemic, but for the first time today, we're gathered together to celebrate this here in this room, and of course, with those of you online. And so those here on our Kirkland campus, in the back of the seat in front of you, if you're sitting in a front row, it's on your chair, but in the back of the seat in front of you, there's a tiny little ring where you'll see one of these little cups. You want to grab that right now. And for those of you who are at home, if you don't have bread and grape juice, just find something solid and something liquid to represent Jesus' body and blood to celebrate, all right? Don't get caught up in the symbols so much. What they represent is what's most important. But pull those out right now. And incidentally, for those who have gluten issues, there's some gluten-free ones that are available in the back. You can grab those on the way out. These aren't terribly easy to open, but the bread is on top under the clear piece of cellophane, the juice underneath the piece of cardboard. So be careful as you open them. But you see, when we eat these symbols, we are reminded of the beauty of God's story. But we're also reminded that Jesus didn't go to a cross for you and me, friends. He went to a cross for our friends as well. Those people who need to know, who don't need another punch in the face, but who need through our lives to be shown what a beautiful God we serve. And so as we eat these symbols, we don't just say thank you for what he's done for us. We begin with prayer. We ask him to open doors, to give us courage, that we'll be clear, whether it's to invite someone to Community Serve Day or Alpha or a service, whatever it is. Can we be the kind of church that hangs up the gloves? Just resolves to be a showcase for the beautiful story of Jesus? Would you bow your head with me? God, I thank you for these symbols. And as we get ready to take them, some have already taken, no problem. As we sing and celebrate your goodness in this song, God, we thank you. We thank you for that reminder. We thank you for your gift to us. You are beautiful. So teach us to spotlight, to showcase, to highlight just how beautiful you are. God, I thank you for the people who loved us enough to invite us or to tell us. I thank you for a church like North Shore where we can come and we can learn and explore wherever we're at spiritually. And I pray for so many friends of mine and so many friends of those in this room and watching online who so need to know there's more to life than this, that your story is true. And so we worship you as the one who makes a way, the one who tears down walls, who overcomes obstacles, who can heal even the most broken heart. And we remember your body and your blood, Jesus, broken and spilled for us. We say thank you in your name.